physically present with us here as we do those that are virtually with us in these platforms. Just to indicate that we are streaming this live on YouTube, but we also had asked people to join the meeting via Teams. So the tech guys had to make their magic to make sure that both platforms talk to each other and we do what needs to be done. It's this one. Yeah. Down way. Oh. Mute the laptop. No, it's gone now. I mute it. Okay. Sorry. You can see we are dealing with this technology, but we have a working group that is dealing with digital and inclusive economy. So I'm sure part of the recommendations that they are making is about how we navigate our way against this. And they already are, that is working, because we have technology guys here. When there is a glitch, they deal with it. So the working group on digital and inclusive economies means that technology on its own is not a solution. You still need to have human beings that tell the technology what it is that it needs to do in order for us to be enabled in what we are doing. So mine is just brief. We have Dr. Nzo. Jacob, can you make sure that Dr. Nzo's mic is upgraded to a speaker? We are using the webinar, so the people, you are used to MS Teams where you just press and then you speak. This one, no. We're keeping the keys with the tech, another tech guy. So that's also digital and inclusive economies who opens up the door for you. So Dr. Nzo, can you just do your speaker request? Jacob will enable you to be a speaker as the first one. And then Roche, we will then start with you after we have engaged with Dr. Nzo. We meet here, colleagues, after hard work that has been done. That hard work is work that the various working groups have made inputs. In June, we met on the 22nd and 23rd of June. We had a blank page. The only thing we had was the C20 recommendations from Brazil. Other than that, we had nothing. We only had various proposed names of the working groups. The meeting in June provided the framework for the working groups to start. Some people were already confirmed and others were not, so we ensured that that part is done, that we have the team that is driving that process, which is the working group facilitators and their co-facilitators. 14 of them we have, 14 policy briefs we have, plus 2, we have a statement of intent from the persons with disabilities, which will be in our policy pack, because we said we want meaningful inclusion, and meaningful inclusion is not only them contributing to the working group's content, it's also providing them with space to provide their political input on how and what they mean by meaningful inclusion of the 2 groupings that we had identified. So on one hand, they are in the working groups, in the policy briefs, because when the working groups were done, we gave the persons with disability organized as D20 in C20 the policy briefs for them to comment, so that if there were other things that were not articulated properly, they could do so. That process was done. We also had a webinar where they articulated how that has ensured meaningful engagement. So the apex of that process is now a page or 2 in the C20 final policy pack that will be providing the space for the persons with disability. Dr. Nzo from the D20 will speak to that. Secondly, we have made provision for the LGBTQI colleagues as well to make comments and to also have that. Some of the working groups have also expressed to us their discomfort with the inclusion let me use the right word, of expressly talking about issues of LGBTQI. We have noted that, and we have said we will give them an opportunity to also sponsor a paragraph that articulates that particular position that they have, so that we don't invalidate the LGBTQI community because they are part of us. But we also don't mute those that have a different view in terms of expressing what it is that they will express. So when you see it, it's not that we are in contest. No, we are clearly articulating that we are in this together. We are leaving no one behind. Everybody would have been involved in the processes of the policy briefs, which the people that have been driving that process are going to give to us. And then the people that are directly affected by that to have a voice that is going to be codified in writing in terms of this process. This evening today you are going to receive the draft C20 communique or declaration, which is a sum total of all the 14 working groups. On Friday, our key focus and only focus is to look at that so that we then sign it off as the document that summarizes what we have. It's like an executive summary. And then the detail will be in the 14 working groups. The policy pack will have effectively 15 chapters, 14 from the working groups. But the 15th chapter is because one of the working groups is dealing with two different areas of focus, which is our working group number 14. They're dealing with just energy transitions. They are also dealing with environment and environment sustainability. So they will be, they have written it says that it deals with the two, and when they present here, they will be presenting from that particular perspective as well. So we are now where we are, and what we will be doing, colleagues, is to hear the final product from the working groups. And in order for us to formalize that process, we will also be calling for formality in terms of adoption. So we're not expecting that there will be conversation, discussions, debates. That process has been done. We now have to get to the end, and we are at the end so that we can put these things out there for those that have an interest to attack us, to engage us, to critique us, to now say I'm critiquing you based on what you have put out there. So what we have is various proposals. I don't know, Jacob, you have taken people away from me. What's going on? Am I on Teams? I see my Teams is gone and it's been doing... Am I online? Because I don't see these people here anymore. Sure. I don't know what happened because I just see drama happening before me. Jacob. I don't see them now. Hi, Jacob. Because the people are not there now. So, what is gone? Is it... hey. Hi, Jacob. Jacob? Hi, Jacob. Can you hear me?
Yes, Maps, I can hear you.
Jacob? I don't see...
Tell me I can hear you.
There were lots of people, they are gone now. Their network, all at the same time.
Okay, I'll switch my own video first for now.
Jacob, can you tell us what's happening?
Okay, let me type here.
Hi, Jacob.
Can you pass him the phone?
Yes.
Because he can't hear me.
Tell us what's happening because I see people are gone.
Oh, you can hear me now.
Jacob, can you talk again?
Maps, can you hear me?
Me? Somebody stop the meeting. Hi, Jacob. Can you speak at least? Doctor, can you say something so that Tanzo? Hi, Dr. Tanzo. Can you unmute and speak? Yes, Jacob, right. Jacob, I see you wrote hi, Max. What was it? Can you speak so that we can hear you? You are playing music now. Jacob, you are playing music. Can you now speak so that we can hear you in the room?
Maps, can you hear me?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. I am playing the sound on the background until your stuff is sorted.
Before you do that, can we hear Dr. Tanzo? Because she is the one immediately after me, and I see she's on the platform. Dr. Tanzo, can you speak? So that we just hear.
Good day, Comrade Mapalani.
No, we can hear
Good
you.
day, Comrade.
We can hear you. So what we are just doing is people who had connected were disconnected somehow. So we're getting them to come back. But we can hear you now. We can start. Okay. The colleagues will come as and when we move along. So I'm not going to start from the bottom. I'm still going to start from where I was. That the program today, tomorrow, and on Thursday, is the different working groups presenting to us their final documents. We will be adopting those as the policy briefs. What's going to happen with those policy briefs behind the scenes? Greer will now work with our knowledge partners. They are the editorial team. They are not changing substance. They are just making sure the English is proper, and then they will also make sure that it is being designed into the final document that we are taking to the C20 Summit happening 12th to 14th of November. At the summit, this exercise will be redone when all of us are in one room. For now, we're doing it, all of us in the same room, but on different days with different working groups presenting. And the reason why we have them the way they are is because working group 1, 2, and 3, they are linked to the government theme on solidarity. We have also added the statement of intent from the D20 as well as statement of intent from the Q20. That's day one, today. Tomorrow, We are going to the theme that deals with equality. Working group 5, 6, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are linked to that particular theme. That's why they are there together. And then on Thursday, it's 6 working groups because they are all linked to the theme on sustainability, which is working group 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's why we have them in the manner that we have them. We couldn't take the other one and say, no, let's have them equitably because our inputs are based on those different themes. That's how we are contributing towards the themes of government, and that's why our working groups colleagues will be here. So others will be here physically, others will be online. They will be presenting what they have. They are not going to be engaged. If you needed to have made inputs on the webinars, that was the platform so that they could now do the further iteration. Now they're giving us what is final after the inputs that were made at the webinars. We would have wanted this process to take us in 9 provinces, in some of the African countries. We also took it to the United States with the limited resources we have. However, the mere fact that going to the finalization of the document, we have the web-based engagement. We have taken a decision that part of the resources that we are still waiting to be confirmed, because we had asked for them for the provincial engagement, and it's not going to be possible for us to do provincial engagements because after this week, our focus is going towards the summit, and there are 2 summits ahead of us. C20 Summit 12 to 14, and then the G20 Social Summit, which is 18 to 20 of November. We will have the provincial report backs in January of next year until March. What is it that we propose through our policy briefs? What did the leaders agree in terms of the declaration of the leaders? We will be going back to society and say, this is what we put our best foot forward, and this is what we have received from that process. We will also be connecting our journey with the journey that goes to the US. Like me, I had not been engaged in these international processes until it arrived in South Africa through the G20. We have a baby brother or baby sister of the G20, which is the BRICS. Because some amongst us in civil society had made those platforms for themselves, whereas those platforms are for all of us. Now that we know how the car looks like in color, what its number plates are, we're going to get into that car. It doesn't mean we're going to lead it. It just means we're going to participate in it. So we will also be facilitating your connection on the issues that BRICS, because there is BRICS Civil, where we should be participating. There will also be G20 next year in the US. It will depend on whether they agree that these engagement groups should be there or not. But it doesn't mean our content dies, even if they don't approve the engagement groups that we currently have because each country determines what their priorities and focus is. We have heard that the US presidency is not keen on this many engagement groups. There are those that are based on trade and finance that they are interested in, but the rest, they don't see how it connects with finance, and so they want to go back to the G20 how it was when it was started way back in 2010. Yeah, around that time when we had financial turmoil, it was ministers of finance. So our journey will continue. So that which we are doing because it's at home now, next year when it goes to the US, it means that we will be like other people that are all over the world who have been contributing towards this process. So that journey does not leave us. It just means that our participation in it will be a bit different. But at least we know it is there and we can participate. We will also link up with the C20. Part of the process is that our colleagues that we are coordinating this process with, which is the colleagues from Network Community Trust, they are working on the launch of what is called Civil Society South Africa. Because at the moment, if you come to civil society today, you go to various groupings. What the Civil Society South Africa seeks to do is say, We have these different groupings organized differently. We now want to coordinate them. So the sectoral coordination that's happening, which is not linked, will now be linked to Civil Society South Africa. So it does not remove that which has been happening. It just makes, a space where they will be coordinated. That's the legacy project of the C20, that we must have a coordinated civil society voice going forward. So that we don't accuse each other of saying, no, what do you want in BRICS when I don't know about it? Civil society South Africa must say there's BRICS civil organizations working in this area, you are needed. And then they coordinate your participation as that particular stakeholder in terms of that process. When another process like this comes back in 2044, it must find Civil Society South Africa. It must be coordinated through that mechanism. Because some of you colleagues will remember that for us to arrive here, there was contestation between us as civil society actors as to who is legitimate enough to be occupying the role of coordinating this particular process. So we don't want that to happen. It is part of the legacy that we have that we will take forward. So without much ado, let me ask Dr. Zuki Swanzo to kickstart the process for us. She's going to be brief, concise, because that which they are presenting is their statement of intent, which will be in the C20 policy pack in terms of how persons with disability organized under D20 wants to see things happening and how they happen. So without much ado, Dr. Nzo, I am giving over the floor to you. Please put your video on so that you take center stage as I exit the stage. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mabalani. I want to apologize that I'm struggling with my video. I really would have loved to keep it on. I'm wearing the same C20 t-shirt and I would have loved to show it off. But I will start with my message of intent titled, Nothing About Us Without Us. This is a letter of intent for disability justice here at the C20. And I, again, am Dr. Zuki Swanzo, a Black South African woman, a wheelchair user, an activist, a researcher. So, Chair, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and friends, when I wheel into a room, I carry more than my research. I carry the roads that are still not paved, the buildings that are still having no ramps, and the voices of rural women who wake before dawn to chase opportunities that remain just out of reach. I carry history too, our collective history as persons with disabilities, of being spoken about instead of with. It was in 1981 when the world, for the first time, called disability a global issue. The United Nations named it the International Year of Disabled Persons. The theme was full participation and equality. For the first time, governments were told, people with disabilities are not patients. We are citizens. Then came the United Nations Decade of Disabled Persons, 1983 to 1992. Policies multiplied, committees were formed, and somewhere in the middle of it, a new movement was born. A movement that refused to be grateful for charity or silenced by pity. We called ourselves Disabled Peoples International, and we shouted a phrase that has never lost its power. Nothing about us without us. That phrase, my friends, traveled from conferences in rooms in New York to the dusty towns of Global South and to communities like mine. If policy marked the beginning, people made the movement. It emerged from disabled people's own organizing. Its modern embrace in disability politics reminds us that policy without participation repeats paternalism. After years of advocacy, the world then adopted the UNCRPD, opening signature in 2007 and entering into force in 2008. This was a landmark in human rights that reframed persons with disabilities as rights holders and as agents. My colleagues and friends, I recount this history not as a detached scholar, but as mentioned earlier, as a Black South African woman, as a wheelchair user, as an activist, as a researcher. I stand here hearing the work of communities who fought for ramps that were never poured, who fought for buses that never lowered their steps, for screens that never spoke, for jobs that never materialized, and for dignity that never wavered. In South Africa, our struggle for inclusion was woven into our struggle for freedom. This is history again. When democracy came, our Constitution of 1996 declared equality for all. And for the first time, disability Apologies, colleagues. As I was saying, recounting history, in South Africa, our struggles for inclusion was woven into our struggle for freedom. Where democracy came, our Constitution of 1996 declared equality for all. And for the first time, disability stood in law as a human right, not as a medical condition. We crafted frameworks in South Africa, such as the White Paper, the strategic plans. The White Paper on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities spoke of barrier removal, empowerment, and dignity. And yet, every time I roll past a staircase without a ramp, I'm reminded that policy is not the same as practice. In my recent research, I traveled between two South Africas, the rural Limpopo and the urban Gauteng. A rural Limpopo of Rosani, who reads with a magnifier because Braille came too late, and the urban Gauteng of Palesa, who runs a small perfume business from her home, selling scents door to door because formal jobs are closed to blind women. I also met Lucas, a man who lost his sight after finishing school, who still believes that education, not charity, is the key to dignity. Their stories are not just examples, colleagues. These are stories of evidence. Evidence that despite a decade of good policy, economic empowerment of persons with disabilities remains the exception, not the norm. And now we are living in a digital age where government, commerce, and even communities are increasingly online. The G20 under South Africa's leadership in 2025 has made digital inclusion a national priority. But inclusion cannot be achieved if it's not affordable and not accessible. If AI cannot recognize our voices, if digital platforms cannot read our screens, if public data systems are not interoperable, then we are not just left behind. Colleagues, we are locked out. Digital transformation without accessibility is simply a new form of exclusion, just wearing a modern name. Technology must not only be smart, it must be just. AI must not only be intelligent, it must be inclusive. Digital public infrastructure must not only connect, it must empower. What does that mean? That means devices that speak to those who cannot see. That means websites navigable by everyone, regardless of ability. That means procurement systems that test for accessibility before approval. What does that mean? That means innovation funds that invest in homegrown assistive technologies. Because this question is not whether the future will be digital anymore. The question is whether it will be equitable. My friends, intersectionality is not a theory. It's a daily reality. I stand before you as a Black person. I stand before you as a woman. I stand before you as a wheelchair user. These identities do not take turns. They all arrive together at once. So when I roll into a government building, I am reminded that sexism, racism, and ableism often sit at the same table. And guess what? They're all eating well. Intersectionality means that if policy only sees one of my identities, it will fail all of them. And yet, intersectionality is also where the greatest possibility lies. So when we design for those at the margins, we build systems that work better for everyone. So as we gather under the banner of the C20, with themes of solidarity, equality, sustainability, I offer this intent. Redefine inclusion, not as an afterthought, but as a design principle. Fund accessibility as infrastructure, not as charity. Measure success, not by policy adoption, but by lived access. Move from learnerships to livelihoods, from pilots to permanence. Build digital economies that reflect human diversity, that do not erase it. My personal pledge is, when I was younger, I actually dreamt of a world where ramps were the norm, where buses lowered their steps, where schools welcomed every child. Today, I dream of a world where the code itself is inclusive, where digital systems recognize every human voice, where AI does not reproduce our biases, and where innovation means freedom, not exclusion. I speak today not as a statistic, but as a survivor of policy gaps, a witness to resilience and a believer in change. I speak for the millions whose names never make it into any declarations, for the rural woman, for the child navigating gravel roads with dignity, for the blind entrepreneur reinventing independence, for the young graduate waiting for the system to believe in his capability. When coming to our shared future, the G20 is not just gathering of economies. It is actually gathering of futures. And if we are honest, the measure of our progress will not be the size of our GDP, but the breadth of our humanity. So let the summit be remembered, not only for the words we spoke, but for the access we built, the lives we touched, and the barriers we broke. In closing, my fellow friends, please know this, and please note this as my final plea. My final plea for recognition of the D20, formal recognition of the D20 as an engagement group. The D20 stands as living proof that when persons with disabilities lead, not follow, the conversation, the world becomes fairer, wiser, and more humane. Throughout the 2025 presidency in South Africa, we have worked as the D20 tirelessly, coordinating across continents, shaping policy submissions through the C20, and amplifying lived experiences to ensure that disability is no longer peripheral, but central to global governance. Throughout the D20 process, there has been collaborations with the C20 and the broader G20 process. We are redefining inclusion, not as an act of benevolence, but as an act of justice. We are proving that inclusion is not charity. It is actually governance. So together with South Africa's G20 presidency, we are setting a new global standard, one that is grounded in solidarity, equality, and sustainability. A standard where accessibility is infrastructure, not an afterthought, where representation is participation, not tokenism, and where leadership by persons with disabilities is recognized as essential to the world's collective progress. Colleagues, this is the future we claim, a G20 that does not merely speak of equality, but practices it boldly, visibly, together, leaving no one behind. Because the promise made in 1981 with the history that I recounted still echoes. Full participation, equality, dignity. And because the words of our movement still stand. Nothing about us without us, ever again. Thank you.
And that's a tired clap. I want a clap that demonstrates that we are. Yeah. Are we ready? Tech, can I? I'm fine. Okay. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you, Dr. Nzo. We just had a technical glitch, but it is sorted out now. I'm sure you guys are able to hear us. Can we have a round of applause again? That is from the periphery to the center. That demonstrates that nothing about persons with disability without persons with disability in the room. And just a reflection that when we started engaging with the colleagues from G20, their primary ask was that we would want to be like you as C20, where we are one of the recognized engagement groups. And to the best of our ability, we tried to engage on that process. And it became clear that the decision had been made in December last year when the president announced his taking over of the presidency, and that it was not going to happen. And we said we will include you in the processes that we are doing at C20, in the leadership, in the inputs around the policy packs, including having people from the persons with disabilities, stakeholders as part of the leaders of the various working groups, including on the processes that I have outlined. And we stand here without any fear of contradiction, that to the best of our ability, we have lived that particular mantra that we want to have persons with disability meaningfully engaged. Colleagues, those of you who may want to have tea, you can take it. They say you can bring your stuff here. We're not going to have a break because we started late, so that they can clear up and then prepare for lunch. We have 3 presentations which we want to run for the next 30 minutes. It will take us to 1:30, which will be lunch. And at that point, we will then come to the end of the proceedings of today. So without much ado, let me call on Rocher Kester, who is the representative of the LGBTQI stakeholders organized under Q20 in the C20, so that she can then address us on the statement of intent. Rocher, if you can put your video on as well, and then we will then, after her, kickstart the processes of engaging with the various working groups. Huh? What? Okay. Jacob, has Rocher logged in? What is going on? Okay, colleagues, let's take this 5 minutes break as we get Rocher, because we can't put her in between. When she's done, we're dealing with the policy with the working groups now. Just 5 minutes, and then we will. She should have logged on. Jacob. Jacob. Are you ready with Roshna? Huh? Nobody. Oh yeah, no. Jacob. Sure. Jacob. Jacob. Jacoba. Jacob. So we must sort him out after that. Jacob, can you speak to me so that I don't sound crazy?
Oh, yes, Maps. I'm still on the call with Roche.
Can you guys get sorted?
We are finishing.
And remove the many restrictions. Just make it run slow, smoothly. I think you've put too many restrictions on the setup. From our end, all we want is for a person when they enter that they must not have their volume on. You must be the only one who upgrade them to speak. But I think the rest of the things makes it very troublesome for us now. Okay, Roche, can you speak so that we see you here? Hi, Dictatura. You want to speak? Jacob.
Yes, Maps is loading. It's loading. It's not my.
Huh? There was a dictatura. Can you put them on? Maybe it's the colleagues from Russia who also are not. They will have to follow Roche, and we want them to be already ready. So when you are done with Roche, please sort them out.
Hello, these are the colleagues from Russia. Thank you for giving us the microphone. Please tell us when it is our time to present.
Okay, we will do so. You will present after the next
Thank you.
speaker. We just wanted to
Thank you very much.
thank you. So they must open your mic, dictatura, when Dimitri speaks.
Correct. Thank you.
Okay, no problemo. Sharp. Spasiba. Jacob, people from Russia can't be faster than you in South Africa. They are very far. Can you finish? Sure. It's on the screen. It's different. So when I put it that side, it shows us the open. Hmm? Yeah, then we close it. That side. Nicole, that side. Buffett. Jacob, I know you are trying your level best. How fast is your level best going to be? You have kept us as prisoners now. It's connecting on the computer of the other. The other speaker is ready, but it's going to be disruptive if we change the flow. Jacob.
She's joining now.
Let now be now. Hi, Rocher. Jacob. Jacob. Huh? Okay. Jacob.
She's already in. She's gonna speak.
Okay. Rocher, are you with us? Can you say, yes, I am with you? Rocher, can you say you are with us?
Me, Sherpa, am I audible?
Now you are. Thank you very kindly. Colleagues, our apologies for this technical glitch, but without much ado, let me invite Rocher Kester. She is the second sous Sherpa and the coordinator of the QA20 within the C20 platform. I've already outlined our approach as G20 with regards to these issues. In the same way as we would make provision and allowance for the voice of persons with disability to find expression, we'll do the same for the LGBTQI communities within us, and we will also make provision for the voice that sees things differently to be recorded. Want us to be on the same page. But without much ado, Rocher, we have been hunting for you. Now we found you. It is your turn. Please turn your video on so that we can see the movie on the other side. Thank you very kindly.
Oh, Sherpa, I am not camera ready at all.
Please
So I'm
proceed.
just going to let the folks imagine that I'm absolutely gorgeous for now. And when it comes to the actual meeting, then it will be confirmed. But let me just pull up the letter of intent here. Just one moment with me, colleagues. Please bear with me. I am here with you now. Okay. So just from the LGBTI sector's point of view, colleagues, we have written and penned a letter of intent, and it basically outlines what has been said. So I'm just going to, just for no means of technical glitches, I'm going to try and share my screen, but if that does not work, I'll just read it out. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm not having much luck here. So let me just read out the letter of intent, and then I'll hand over back to the Sherpa. So it's just, so I'm writing in my capacity as the second sous Sherpa of the Civil Society 20 to formally express the intent to fully integrate the comprehensive stakeholder submissions from the LGBTIQA+ sector into the 2025 C20 policy pack. These inputs, submitted by a wide array of civil society organizations and experts, provide an indispensable roadmap for ensuring that the G20's agenda is truly inclusive and leaves no one behind. The contributions received reflect a robust evidence-based perspective that is simultaneously national, regional, and global in its scope. They articulate specific challenges and opportunities facing LGBTI persons across G20 nations and the Global South, with a particular emphasis on the African continent. This multi-level engagement ensures that resulting policy recommendations are grounded in local realities while being informed by universal human rights policies. A defining strength of these submissions is that the intersectional approach across the C20's 14 working groups. These inputs meticulously demonstrate how issues of sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, and sex characteristics are not siloed, but are intrinsically linked to the core mandates of each group, from digital transformation and health to education, climate justice, and global finance. This cross-cutting analysis reveals that LGBTI plus inclusion is not a standalone issue, but a fundamental prerequisite for achieving the G20's goals in economic stability, sustainable development, and social cohesion. Key cross-cutting issues identified include the critical need for data disaggregation to make LGBTI communities visible in policy planning, the eradication of discrimination legislation and policy frameworks, particularly colonial era laws that perpetuate violence and exclusion, ensuring safe and equitable access to essential services including healthcare, education, social protection, and digital spaces. Then, finally, addressing the targeted online harm and political scapegoating that uniquely endanger LGBTI individuals and undermine social fabric. Of particular significance are the submissions of the Working Group to Economics, which powerfully argue that financial and trade architecture must be designed to support all individuals and the diverse families they form. The inputs highlight how tax, inheritance, and social benefit laws that privilege one family type actively worsen poverty and lock non-conforming families out of development gains. By advocating for economic policies that support LGBTIQA+-led enterprise, ensure workplace non-discrimination, and provide targeted entrepreneurial funding, these recommendations chart a clear path toward a better standard of living for those on the margins, directly combating poverty and economic inequality. The submissions are not made in a vacuum. They are firmly supported by existing legislative and policy frameworks, including international human rights law, the UN Sustainable Development Goals, the African Union's Agenda of 2063, and the Maputo Protocol. The contributions expertly leverage these instruments to demonstrate that promoting LGBTI inclusivity is a matter of legal obligation and an alignment with established global commitments. Ultimately, these inputs affirm the fundamental principle that LGBTI rights are human rights. They compellingly argue that human dignity and safety are non-negotiable, precursors to ensuring equitable access to economic opportunity, healthcare, education, and a sustainable environment. One cannot access a classroom, a clinic, or a marketplace in fear of violence or discrimination. I therefore urge the fullest consideration and integration of these vital contributions into the 2025 C20 policy pack By doing so, we will send a powerful message that the G20 process is committed to full citizen inclusivity and is dedicated to building a future where every person, without exception, can participate in and benefit from global progress. Sincerely, Roche Kester, the second Sue Sherpa from the C20. Thank you so much, Sherpa. That is our contribution for our letter of intent from the LGBTIQA plus sector.
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause. Thinking on the same trajectory as the D20, we want to leave no one behind, and we don't want to also, claim easy victories by, not recognizing the various challenges that are there. But our line of sight is the opportunities that make us stronger together. And I think from your inputs, we are getting into that particular roadmap. So without much ado, colleagues, we have had technical glitches, but now we are on the cruise mode. We're going to call on the first working group, the working group on trade, financial architecture, and sustainable development. On that note, I'm going to call the facilitator to introduce the team that is going to present online. She's here with us, Ikopling. Over to you. Don't want this ship to be about me and only me. You can come that way.
Good morning. Am I going to need? Oh, for the online people. And we are in the afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ikopling Komane, and I am the facilitator for the Trade, Financial, Architecture, and Social Sustainable Development Group. And we have Dimitri Stasilias, who is all the way in Russia. And this, our policy document has been one hell of a ride. We have had 4 meetings whereby we had civil groups that are on the ground contribute to this policy document. So it's not a document whereby we sat on our laptops and we were just fishing on the internet on what was happening on the ground in South Africa in terms of trade, financial architecture, and sustainable development. And asking a system that has been around for centuries, such as the financial system, is not an easy task. And for an economy that is considered a young economy, this was not an easy task. So we are certain that this policy documents represent South Africans, civil society, and it represents what we would like the G20 to do in terms of financial architecture and sustainable development, and that our voices would be heard. It's not just paper. I say that these words that are written on this paper are alive because these are lived experiences. So Dimitri, welcome. Thank you very much, Shepa, and thank you very much to the team. I hope you take note, ask us questions after this. It involves you as well. Thank you very much.
Dimitri, spasiba. Over to you. Jacob, Dimitri speaking, we can't hear him. But earlier the colleague was speaking and we could hear her. Can we unmute her to speak? Can you try say something, Dimitri, so that we can hear you this side? We can see you.
Dear
Hello.
colleagues, can you hear the Russian
Now
side?
we can. Now we can. You
Now
had
okay?
not pressed somewhere there. Now you have pressed. We can hear you. Thank you.
Thank you. Слышит.
Да.
Всё хорошо.
Yes. Дорогие друзья, я приветствую вас из Москвы. Добрый день.
Dear colleagues and dear friends, warm greetings from Moscow. Good day to everyone.
Как только что сказала моя уважаемая коллега, госпожа Кополенко, мы действительно в нашей группе проделали большую работу. Мы собирались, общались, делились мнениями несколько месяцев. И с большим удовольствием мы представим результат нашей работы сегодня вам.
As it was said quite correctly by distinguished Madam Facilitator, a very big work was done along these long months. We have discussed many issues and proposed some new thoughts, and today I would like to present the results of our work.
Но прежде этого я хочу поздравить председательство ЮАР с успешным руководством, в том числе гражданской двадцаткой, сказать большое спасибо своему коллеге, господину Мабалана, госпоже Николь и, конечно, координатору нашей группы, госпоже Кополенко. И я с нетерпением жду встречи с вами в Йоханнесбурге в ноябре.
But before I start my presentation, I would like to congratulate the presidency of the South Africa for the excellent leadership during these months, and especially for the C20. And I would like to say particular thank you to Mr. Mabalana, to Madam Nicole, and the distinguished Madam Facilitator for all the help accorded to us.
Итак, теперь по нашему политическому документу. Прежде всего, я хотел бы сказать о тех проблемах, которые выделила наша группа.
And of course, I await our meeting all of you in Johannesburg. Now, as for the policy document, I would like to start with the issues that my group identified.
И стоит сказать, говоря о проблемах, мы с коллегами уделяли особое внимание глобальному югу и, в частности, африканскому региону. И среди одной из первых таких проблем мы выделили долговой кризис и ловушки жесткой экономии, когда долг африканских стран, например, существенно растет, и это является проблемой.
Starting with the issues, we paid particular attention to the questions concerning the global south and, of course, the African region. And the first issue that we identified are the traps of debt crisis and austerity when we're talking about the situation of growing debt of African countries that impedes their growth.
Вторая проблема – это существующие торговые правила, которые подрывают развитие.
The next issue that we identified are the existing trade rules that undermine the development.
Третье – это проблема, связанная с климатическим финансированием и инвестиционной справедливостью.
Then we can move on to the climate financing and investment justice.
Четвертая проблема – это сырьевая зависимость и несправедливое ценообразование.
The next issue that we identified is commodity dependency and unfair pricing.
Пятая проблема, которую мы выделили, это односторонние санкции и стабильность мирового рынка. Односторонние санкции, которые подрывают и энергетическую безопасность, и дестабилизируют товарные рынки, и ослабляют экономики стран.
Then we also would like to point out the unilateral sanctions and the stability of world markets. And these sanctions also heavily undermine commodity markets.
Шестая проблема, о которой следует говорить, это необходимость уважения суверенитета, культурной, исторической идентичности и социальной инклюзии. Недопустимым является, когда попытки Запада культурно доминировать и формировать на почве этого в своих интересах только торговлю, финансы, маргинализируя при этом глобальный юг.
The next issue that we also identified is the necessity to respect sovereignty, cultural and historical identity, and social inclusion. It is unacceptable when West asserts their cultural dominance and thus tries to shape the world trade and finance only to its own ends and benefits.
Седьмая проблема – это необходимость развития и поддержки, в том числе региональных интеграционных образований. И здесь с коллегами мы обращаем внимание на важность развития, поддержки большого евразийского партнерства, которое может способствовать справедливому сотрудничеству, в том числе со странами и интеграционными образованиями африканского региона.
Next, we would like to move on to the support for the regional integrational formations. And here, my colleagues and myself would like to turn your attention to the Greater Eurasian Partnership Initiative. That is a great initiative for the support of regional structural and integrational initiatives, and especially for the African region initiatives.
Восьмая проблема – это необходимость сохранения исторической памяти и недопущения искажения истории. Как нам с вами известно, в этом году мировое сообщество отметило 80-ю годовщину победы во Второй мировой войне над фашизмом. И здесь мы также подчеркиваем важность недопущения пересмотра итогов Второй мировой войны, разрушения памятников борцам с нацизмом и солдатам-освободителям, недопустимость проведения маршев, прославляющих нацистов и их пособников. И мы, как гражданское общество, решительно осуждаем это. Необходимо отметить, что это положение имеет существенное значение и для экономических отношений, так как наши взгляды, идеалы являются основой и фундаментом для нашего сотрудничества.
The next item that we would like to turn your attention to is the respect for history and absolute intolerance to the distortion of history. As you well know, in 2025, the world celebrated the 80th anniversary for the victory in the Second World War over the Nazi regime. And we see it as completely unacceptable to revise the results of these historic events and distort and diminish the monuments that were built for the saviors, as well as the marches that are done in support of the Nazi regime. As the civil society, we strongly condemn all of these actions. And we think that this particular issue plays a significant role when it comes to economic cooperation. Our ideals and our visions are the foundation for our cooperation.
Девятая проблема – это исключение дискриминации в зависимости от расы, национальности, пола, языка и религии.
The next item that we would like to point your attention to is the unacceptable discrimination on the basis of race, nationality, gender, and language.
Десятая проблема – это существующая проблема как раз исключения людей с инвалидностью из торговых и финансовых систем, что является недопустимым.
The next issue that we also pointed our discussion towards is the exclusion of people with disabilities from the financial structures.
Теперь я бы хотел перейти к рекомендациям, которые дает наша группа для лидеров G20. Их мы разделили на рекомендации в сфере реформы управления, в сфере приоритетов инвестиций, в сфере правовых и политических инструментов и программные действия.
Now I would like to turn to the recommendations that we would like to address to the leaders of G20. We have divided them in the following groups. These are the recommendations for governance reform, then the priority of investment, as well as the political recommendations and program recommendations.
Сначала о рекомендациях в сфере реформы управления. Во-первых, мы предлагаем проведение реформы МВФ Международного валютного фонда и Всемирного банка с тем, чтобы они отражали реалии нашего времени, чтобы были увеличены квотные голоса, в том числе представители глобального юга. И это бы способствовало справедливому распределению финансовых ресурсов и развитию всех членов организации.
To start with, we would like to invoke the governance reform, and that means the reform of IMF and the World Bank. In this way, if we count for all the quotas, especially the votes of the Global South, we can achieve a more equal and just distribution of financial resources.
Во-вторых, мы предлагаем создать механизм реструктуризации долга в рамках G20.
Then again, we propose the creation of a restructurization mechanism for the debt under the G20 umbrella.
В-третьих, мы предлагаем усилить процесс принятия решений в ВТО в интересах глобального юга, реформировать в этой части Всемирную торговую организацию, а также отказаться от квазиэкологических и иных барьеров искусственных, которые направлены на недобросовестную конкуренцию. А также мы призываем установить безусловное функционирование органа по урегулированию споров в рамках Всемирной торговой организации.
Then again, we would like to strengthen the decision-making process when it comes to all of the actions taken under the World Trade Organization, and this should be done in favor of the Global South. We would really need to inform WTO on these issues, the more the better, and also we would like to deny all of the quasi-eco actions or artificial obstacles that promote the unjust competition. In this way, we also would like to propose the creation of a special authority that would oversee the dispute regulation and settlement.
И в-пятых, это институционализировать обязательное участие организаций людей с инвалидностью в процессах принятия решений по экономическим вопросам.
And then again, we will see it as a very pertinent issue to institutionalize the participation of movements of people with disability in the economic activities.
Теперь я хочу сказать о наших рекомендациях в сфере приоритетов инвестиций.
Now, please let me turn to our recommendations when it comes to the priority of investment.
Во-первых, мы призываем отдавать приоритет инвестированию в устойчивое сельское хозяйство и проекты адаптации в глобальном юге и на пространстве Большого Евразийского партнерства.
First, I would like to propose as an investment priority the sustainable agricultural projects of the Global South, as well as adaptation programs for the Global South and the Greater Eurasian Partnership.
Во-вторых, мы обращаем внимание на необходимость инвестирования в местную переработку сырьевых товаров для снижения от внешней зависимости.
Then again, we stand for the necessity to promote local recycling of commodities to have less dependency on the outside markets.
В-третьих, мы предлагаем создать региональные центры устойчивости для обмена знаниями, для содействия финансированию, партнерствам, которые поддерживались бы местными органами власти и гражданским обществом.
Also, we would like to propose the creation of regional sustainability centers for better knowledge exchange and with the support as well as financial support by local authorities and the civil society.
Следующая сфера рекомендаций – это правовые и политические инструменты.
Now let me please turn to the legal and political instruments and recommendations.
Первое из них – это наш призыв реформировать правила Всемирной торговой организации, для этого пересмотреть правила по субсидиям и тарифам для защиты политического пространства развивающихся стран.
Here, we would like to propose the reform of the rules of the WTO to review the subsidies and tariff rules in particular to better protect the political landscape of the developing countries.
Второе – это принять меры, которые бы препятствовали бегству капитала и незаконным переводам, подрывающим государственные инвестиции.
Then again, we strongly require some measures that will prevent the capital leaking from countries and the illegal transactions.
Третье – это кодифицировать уважение суверенитета, то есть интегрировать защиту культурной и исторической идентичности в торговые, финансовые, климатические отношения без дискриминации.
We also stand for the introduction of special legal norms that will protect the sovereignty, and sovereignty meaning that we will include cultural and historical sovereignty issues and questions when it comes to financial, trade and climate discussions.
И четвертое, мы призываем лидеров группы 20 отказаться от политики односторонних санкций, не одобренных Советом Безопасности Организации Объединенных Наций.
And as the last measure in this category, we ask the leaders of the G20 to deny all of the unilateral sanctions that were not approved and adopted by the Security Council of the United Nations.
И последнее – это наши рекомендации в сфере программных действий, которые мы также подготовили.
The last set of recommendations that we have also prepared concern our program actions.
Во-первых, это создание платформ по содействию торговли юг-юг, север-юг.
The first measure here is the creation of platforms to facilitate trade on the lines such as south-south and north-south.
Второе – это создавать фонды по климатическому финансированию и поддерживать соответствующие проекты.
Then we really stand for the creation of foundations to support climate and finance actions.
Третье – это создавать программы по сохранению исторического и культурного наследия и реализовывать их.
Then again, the creation of foundations and programs for the preservation of historical and cultural heritage and their implementation.
Четвертое – это взаимодействовать с большим евразийским партнерством, поддерживать его как платформу для стратегической координации, инфраструктурной интеграции и справедливого сотрудничества в многополярном мире.
We once again would like to turn to the Greater Eurasian Partnership and its support as the foundation and platform for strategic cooperation in terms of infrastructure and political questions.
Пятое – это создавать инклюзивные решения по финансированию семей в доступе к жилью, финансам и средствам к существованию.
We would also like to promote some financing initiatives for the families and better access of families to the housing and additional financing.
Шестое – установить минимальный 5% резерв государственных закупок для поставщиков, принадлежащих, являющихся людьми с инвалидностью, и что будет подтверждаться соответствующими реестрами и штрафами за притворное участие в таких реестрах.
We would also like to see the introduction of minimum 5% reserve when it comes to state procurement from suppliers that are represented by persons with disabilities. We would like to see special registries imposed and also fines for those who violate or unjustly use such reserves.
Не применять в экономических и иных программах по развитию односторонние санкции, не одобренные Советом Безопасности ООН.
And once again, we see it as completely unacceptable to administer unilateral sanctions when it comes to economic and financial programs if such sanctions have not been adopted by the Security Council of the United Nations.
И последнее, восьмое, проводить мероприятия, направленные на сохранение исторической памяти и недопущение искажений истории, в том числе о Второй мировой войне и роли советского народа в победе над фашизмом.
And once again, we would also like to to highlight the importance of special measures that will be directed to the preservation of history and legacy, as well as the importance of Soviet people's role in the victory of in the Second World War.
Большое спасибо. В заключение я хочу сказать, что это отражает наш итоговый документ, и хочу сказать, как шерпа России в гражданской двадцатке, как представитель Российской Федерации в этой важной весомой организации, мы максимально поддерживаем наших африканских братьев, наших друзей, и в стремлении по борьбе с политикой неоколониализма, в налаживании справедливого сотрудничества. И хочу сказать, что мы в этом вопросе полностью солидарны с вами и будем и дальше выстраивать системное, взаимовыгодное сотрудничество и взаимодействие. Большое спасибо вам.
I would really like to thank you all for the attention accorded to my presentation. And in conclusion, I can say that everything I highlighted today depicts the whole idea of our general document. As Sherpa for Russia in C20 and representative of the Russian Federation in such a significant initiative and organization, I would like to thank everyone and once again highlight that in view of battle against neo-colonial politics, we really would like to support just cooperation, especially with our African friends and partners, and we stand with you for the solidarity and mutual win-win cooperation. Thank you once again.
Spasiba. Thank you very kindly, Dimitri, and thanks again to you and the colleagues that are here for your patience about the challenges that we experienced. Colleagues, as I said, we are not discussing, debating. That's the final product. So I'm now going to administer just a process for calling for removal for adoption of that as the position that represents all of us based on the inputs we have made, and a second. Then we have the first one deposited. Online and virtual. So online and here. Can I have a mover for the adoption of the policy? Can you empower them? We must just have it on record.
In Inej Adams, I'm in support of the policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Inej. Can I have a seconder? You can switch off that. Can I have a seconder, colleagues? It's unparliamentary for us not to speak.
Hello, everybody. Sorry about that. Hello, everybody. My name. Okay. My name is Lilian Dambo, and I second the policy, the adoption of the policy brief.
Thank you. Thank you very kindly, colleagues. It might look not significant, but it is significant, that process. There's a presentation which is an outcome of a process, and then we have a mover for the adoption, and it is second. Can we put a round of applause for the first policy brief that is deposited? Thank you very kindly. It's now in the hands of Gray and the knowledge team. As I said, their brief is to make sure that the language, English is fine, make it simple language as well without changing the content. So that's what we are going to do. We now move with speed. They're not online, they are in the room. We have the working group number 2, and I'm not on this alone. I'm going to ask Nicole to do the honors by introducing the colleagues that are going to speak. You can come, now leave the mic there and take this one.
Right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being present. So today we're going to welcome Working Group 2, which is people to people and immigration. So would like to welcome Dr. Liz and for her to present the policy brief for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I'm super anal about this. So my name is not Luz. My name is Luz Elena. So that's me, Luz Elena Hanauer. So we are working on the migration and people-to-people movement. The policy that the recommendations that we want to put upon you today have to do with the problem that we have seen in the treatment of migration. So we are looking at a security approach coupled with unproductive KPIs, and then those are apprehensions, detentions, deporting, turn back, not real outcomes. So we don't have time to work, we don't have credential recognition, no coverage, and then we have disorderly migration laws, which are also a little bit bipolar, so in all the countries, and this is for all the groups, there is permissions and permits and laws to get there. There is allowances, but once the people get there legally, then they cannot get documentation. So that is one of the problems that it's in there. So there is another problem, which is a lot of blind spottings, and this came from your recommendations into our original proposal, which is we need to look more carefully at the most vulnerable type of populations. So what are they? Stateless, LGBTIQ, children, elder, and all the people who are at the margins. This policy has to look at them as a priority, and as a priority to humanize all the processes of immigration in the world. And the group is called People to People because we need to humanize and make sure that there is a people-centered approach. So we put forward to the governments, it's in your hands to avoid exploitation of immigrants, to lower discrimination, misinformation, and then also stop winning votes, stop looking at populist requests for getting votes from making the migrant population an expiatory goat. So don't look at your constituency to create division among the communities, because migration can bring a big economic benefit to your communities, but not only that, it can also bring enrichment to your cultural support. We then looked, and this also came from the feedback that you gave us, there is AI carrying significant risk when applied to migration governance. So while we are looking forward to all the developments of biometric facial recognition, we can also have bias in the code, looking at darker skinned people, minorities, religious majorities, but that there is a bias against that, and that can opaque AI can also mean opaque triage, and it also may mean streaming the algorithm to take people out with a discrimination concern. So border tech expansion needs to have safeguards, and there must always be a person behind it, someone that is responsible for it. Because otherwise we go back to the same situation, whereas migrants are in an under-regulated experimentation where you have a rule where you legally enter into a place because it created all that framework, but once you're there, then you are the alien and you are perceived by the local population as the illegal immigrant, as the one that came to do population replacement and all of those myths that actually it is in the hands of the countries of the G20 to really debunk. So we have, looking at the high-risk systems, which are automated population checks, travel screening, but also the accountability that needs to be done there, making sure that migrants are not disproportionately affected and that they also have an opportunity to appeal. So we, again, our group is called People to People, and we are looking at the people, that not only the people that is in the receiving end of this policy, but also the ones that are in the making end, because we at the end of the day are the same thing. So we are just people. So our problem then continues into, we are writing this policy or making a recommendation in the differentiation between what it is, what it should be, and what it has to be done. And what it is right now is that we have only one focus for migration, and that is security. So it's overly securitized, and while security must definitely be one of the key areas of migration policy, it mustn't be the only focus. We need a multidisciplinary approach, and perhaps because it is seen only like that is why it is failing on all the other fronts, especially on integration. We also have the same systemic barriers, and this could be for any other group. I mean, I'm sure that all the 17 groups can repeat these barriers verbatim. So we have prejudice in the form of racism, sexism, nationalism, homophobia, and ableism. We have exclusion that is doing what? Undermining the human potential. Of whom? Of both recipient societies, recipient communities, and migrant communities. We, again, another point that we can put in all the working groups, we have a lack of holistic solutions in governance. We have big problems of corruption and bad governance everywhere as a systemic barrier. So this is part of how our systems are constructed, and in here particularly we're looking at bribes in the departments of the corresponding Home Affairs, but we are also looking at the bias. Then we have completely unproductive KPIs, so in that we're looking at number of deportation, number of detentions, and we are not looking at the actual KPIs that would make people legalize through the routes that they need to legalize. That's our next barrier, which is an incredibly onerous legal route, both for the state that is doing it and for the person that has decided to move on from their country to another. So there is the legal route, there is, and I think in the intervention of the first person who said, there is a beautiful policy, but every time I need to be in a wheelchair in the city of Joburg, I can't. So we do have sometimes the legal frameworks, but when it takes 21 years for a person to receive documentation, then that is really not productive. We also have weak protections, and we are in a low trust system. Our societies are made of low trust because we don't know what to expect from whom? From the main authorities, police, judges, administrators. And then AI tech that is running without guardrails could also add to these, or it could be a benefit. So we are at that crossing point where AI can actually become an ally for purpose and for progress, but it can also make us go back and increase the systemic barriers fat. The truth is that 80% of the global GDP is created by these countries that are talking here, and it shapes all the frameworks that affect millions and millions of people. Migrants are only one part of the groups of people who are on the margins. But here we are also talking about systemic poverty and communities that have in themselves. So it's like the marginalized, marginalized, the marginalized, and then it continues to the infinite, always looking for someone more vulnerable until we are in the weakest link of the chain, which is normally having the face of a black migrant woman who is disabled. And then we are then at the bottom of it. So we have a lot of intersectionality in barriers here, and they are exacerbated by the fact that people who are finding it hard to legalize wherever they are finding it harder to earn and therefore contribute. And contribute in the form of tax, but also contribute with their skills and with whatever it is that they're going to do if they were going to be able to just productively use their skills in the communities where they have arrived. We also have a very, very restricted and slow pathway, which I mentioned already, but what does that do? So if it takes you 21 years, if it takes you 5 years, if it takes you 80 hours in a queue, that means you are becoming flesh for exploitation. And how does exploitation look like? Sex, labor, and traffic. So then you see the migrants being taken by the police or by the authorities with drugs, in huge warehouses somewhere being waited to be exploited. Why? Because they couldn't be empowered to go and get a normal job and earn a living. So in some member countries, there are constitutional court-driven protections. In others, there is a lot more repression for especially LGBTQI people who are hiding and fleeing. And we need to also point out, and this also came from your feedback, that some of the countries that we are dealing with are making it illegal. So it is illegal to be part of this collective, and that is also one of the reasons why the people migrate. So we have this misinformation, disinformation, and irregular migration drives with a full security issue approach. So what is our proposal? Go back to the center. And what is the center? People. Countries that do have service delivery plans quickly identify and enable lawful residence, documentation, and work. What does that reduce? Vulnerability, irregularity, and it also reduces the creation and thickening of misery belts in the peripheries of urban areas and urban recipient areas, which are normally port cities in the countries where this happens. There are some gaps that push people into irregularity, and I have mentioned them, mostly on governance, when there is a law that allows you to get into somewhere and then the implementation is not there in the administrative levels. For example, for children born in a country that are in limbo, and especially for stateless people. Safeguards for children and the elder are part of the 1961 convention, but we are not seeing them. And in countries like South Africa, there is the safeguard. It is available, but then we also have to look at the actual assessment of access for those children. Thinking of alternatives to detention. So there is people who migrate, and migrating in itself is not a crime. Migrating within a legal framework is not a crime. Being a migrant and committing crime is a crime, and what the crime is not being a migrant, is whatever the action that this person is doing, and all the might of the law should fall upon it. So alternatives to detention when somebody is in an irregular situation should be aiming to regularize instead of to punish. This will improve the impact to work rights and documentation. This will prevent destitution and redetention. We must also realize that the majority of migrants have a network, And that network can also support the legalizing process. Arrival cities are a reality. Port cities that receive a lot of people on a regular basis will be in need for further support from the countries, because otherwise social cohesion will suffer through friction. So when there is not enough, I mean, we've seen it, we're all standing here, so we've all seen that when there is not enough housing, schooling, and clinics for the local community, then there will be an immediate focus on the migrant community. And that means the countries who are aware of being recipient cities, recipient ports, need to fund those places so that their communities can thrive, and then they can add the people into their workforce and into their productive lines of economy. So mandating human review for asylum, detention, and status cases is important, because now that we're having digital ID and biometrics, then we will understand that AI has its limitations. So it's a very good tool, but we cannot give to the AI the management of the migration processes. There were some wonderful suggestions that you gave us to improve the submission, and one of them was to look in detail at the Kampala Convention, which is the African Union Convention for the Protection and Assistance of Internally Displaced Persons in Africa. And that is a template, but it also builds our vision into why is people migrating. People is migrating because they want to have a better life, they want to look for better opportunities, or because their country is in such a dire conflict and they are going to die. And that puts people in three different categories of migrants. There is the migrants that go as refugee and asylum seekers, and they are normally opposition of a government that may or may not be right, but is about to kill them. And if this is proven, we have signed as countries the law that says that we will receive them and they are legally allowed. These are asylum seekers and refugees. In our countries, you also have the frameworks to say who are the people that we want to allow and how. What are the requirements for somebody to leave their country of birth and come join and become natural in our country and work? If those people comply with the requirements that we decided to give ourselves, then the documentation should be issued. We also should be calling onto the states to prevent displacement, to run their governments without killing the opposition, so that they don't have to flee in numbers to other countries. And this also includes climate and development contexts. And here I invite you to think about the big situations that we have been having and will continue to have in relationship to climate refugees. If there are floods that are going to destroy completely and leave inhabitable geographical location where there is people, those people are going to go. Some are going to die, but some are going to go. And it is also our invitation to review what are we going to do to prevent those, or to mitigate, because I think we are beyond prevention right now, the climate context that we will create internally displaced people. In South Africa, I invite you to think KZN, and in Johannesburg, I invite you to think Sky River, but we can look at it everywhere else. The African Union and the regional union, like the European Union, also have the ability to intervene, support, coordinate resources, so we are looking at that too. Our regional bodies are also how we decided to autonomously organize, and the invitation is to do that. So then we have core obligations, which is, to secure, to assist without discrimination, prevent arbitrary displacement, and that is to, if there is conflict, if there is disaster, if there is development projects, then we need to look at the people. I go back to the name of our group, And so the group is people to people, and that is before we do a massive dam for another massive power plant, what's going to happen with the people that's in there? Are we going to send them to wander the continent? Safety, dignity, and freedom movement are human rights, but also we need to look at the host communities, because if we send impoverished people to an impoverished community, there will be clashes, and the host community should be enriched and not impoverished by the flux of people. Again, we're looking at child-headed households, children, pregnant women, the elder, people with disabilities as people who should be subject to special protection, not only in terms of migration, but in terms of every single policy that we do. Facilitating humanitarian access is also not leaving people in deserts when you know they are in deserts to die of hunger and thirst, and not leaving them to drown in the sea when you know they're in the sea, and ideally not throwing at them the army so that they can drown in the ocean. Early warning systems, genuine consultation, and impact assessment for the projects will reduce this. So those are some practical actions that we think could be done as a minimum standard to prevent this. In terms of administration, registration, civil documentation, GVB, and child protection are things that can be done by the administrative bodies of each country, and especially the home affairs departments of each country. So we spoke, and it was a very robust conversation about all the areas that I've just mentioned, but why security first governance is a problem, because the home affairs dominate. What's the opportunity? A holistic government compact with shared mandates. There is limited legal pathways. Why is that really bad? Because there is very poor service delivery, and that leads to exploitation. What opportunity do we see there? Skills, seasonal, circular visas tied to verified shortage. What does that mean? That means that people in frontier spaces who are going to come, and one of the constants in this conversation was migration is not a threat, it's a reality. People are moving and they're going to cross your border. So if they're going to cross your border, don't you want to make sure that what they earn, gets taxed? Don't you want to make sure that they come and they can go back and they can come back? Don't you want to make sure to have all their details and they don't have to be fighting fences and lions? Give them seasonal visas, don't make it completely impossible. If the people that are migrating are, let's say, farm workers, don't try to make them doctors and astronauts, because that's not the people that you're going to have. Backlogs create limbo and they create informal work, and backlogs are the cooking pot for corruption. So improving service delivery standards under SLAs, the public service is a profession, and is not a profession for cronies and comrades and people who we know as friends. It's a profession for people to deliver service with dignity to their own people. And so their standards should be the highest. Credential recognition, every country has skills waste, and there is shortages on hands for something. If we improve the inventory of those, better agreements can be done. Also, better bridging for the skills that are existing could be done as a transfer process. Some countries have weak work standards and weak enforcement. So if undercutting, trafficking, and unsafe work is a possibility, it will happen. What can we do as an opportunity? Let's inspect jointly, increase capacity, and make sure that all employees are either migrant or local or naturalized, have benefit from that standard. misinformation and disinformation. I think I've hammered onto you, and all 10 of you that are here are exhausted of me of saying that, but myths fuel backlash. And they fuel backlash from the people who are most oppressed, who are most vulnerable. And so our governments need to commit to transparency and cohesion. And they're the ones who need to protect the population who is most vulnerable from those, from that spread of misinformation. You have the apparatus of the state, so get your apparatchiks to do that. Poor data and unproductive KPIs is attached to what we were speaking. So if you have very little data of the people that is coming because you are not having a process to collect that data, then you will not be able to track and monitor what is it that the people come and do, where is it that they go, where do they settle, and how do they earn a living. And that is why in places like South Africa you have settlements in everywhere, and everybody's saying, where are they from, where are they from, who are they, what are they doing? You should know that at point of entry. So that connects to our take on biometric risks and our proposal and quest to humanize the tech and have it as a partner and not as a delegate. War and climate displacement, unfortunately, are also a reality, so we not only need to realize this and be ready in the border and in the host countries, but also it's a further conversation that we will speak in another group, which is how do we keep peace, how do we keep the economies running, and I think the previous working group had something to do with that in South-South cooperation in terms of finance, but also we will have to deal with the climate displaced people, and for that we need a compact. Housing and zoning constraints are, we will also have some of that in another working group, but what means is our cities need to be modernized, because if we have antiquated spatial planning and rent spikes, that will also create a lot of clashing between the communities. We need to look at transit-oriented mixed income buildings and faster approvals. We will definitely need to densify our cities. So our overall recommendations were, the first one, allow economic activity, capacitate refugees, excluded groups to become taxpayers. And perhaps the first thing that a person needs to get is a tax number, so that the minute they hit the country and they have their legal document as an asylum seeker, as a refugee, their work visa, whatever visa that is legal to work, the first thing they can get is a PAYE. So that already gives you 12% of whatever income they are making. That also allows them to integrate and thrive in the society where they are building. So the minute someone is like eating a chunk of what you are hardworking, you are looking at what is it that they're doing with that money. We also need to make sure that they are not employees, but if they can become business and business owners and co-op, then we are looking at a better model. We're looking at job creators and not just job takers. That means we need to solve for visas, KYC, credit procurement, barriers, and SME founders. Making a company in a country like South Africa, and I can also say in other countries of the Global South, takes 48 hours. We have reduced the red tape. Let's further reduce it so they can become employers. Expand safe legal routes aligned to real vacancies. So here's a conversation that was super heated. Care workers, domestic workers, logistic, construction. People are normally reticent to that, but the truth is that the care economy in most countries is run by migrants who are, by the way, underpaid and don't have a way of moving out of it. If the seasonal visa, the circular visa, or any legal way would be for and I'm going to throw this example here, I shouldn't, but for the millions of people that cross a border to do domestic service, they would. Nobody wants to be illegal. Being illegal is very difficult. So they would, and they would happily pay for it, and not only would they happily pay for it, but they would pay much less than what they are paying the pimps at the border. That money would go to our states and our fiscus. They would also comply with the terms that would be given there. So if you need to go back 6 months later, you would. If you need to pay a higher tax, you would. Employers would do that too. So expanding the safe and legal routes to migrate would also create more mobility across the borders, and this would benefit both the recipients and the taker states. Removing barriers, that was our first recommendation, and that meant allow economic activity, and we say those 4 points. Our second recommendation is to remove barriers, and what do we say? Equal access to education, employment, and social protection. Why? Because that is what makes us human. We need to humanize the process of migration. Look at the most vulnerable population, LGBTQI+, protection and access. We cannot have such a disproportionate number of deaths of LGBTQI+ people who are also migrants. So if we look at the numbers are actually very scary, and they're not a statistic. Whoever died there is a person. So if we ensure non-discrimination in work, housing, health, and sensitive processes, then we will become more human as a society, and also it will allow us to make the integration process more dialogical. And the ethical use of AI with clear guardrails. So that was our second recommendation, and here I come with the last one, which is the third and last recommendation that we have, talking about service delivery processes. So what do we mean there? And here we have 4 points. Fast credentialing and childcare supports. It takes away skills waste for migrant women and allows them, as soon as you get that tax number, you immediately can get a job, and normally you are more qualified than for care work. So if you are legally allowed to move through the different universes where you can provide a service, you will, and that will improve household stability for both migrant and recipient communities. Statelessness is a gap that is shameful, really, for all our countries. There cannot be people who have no ID, they don't exist. People exist, and we need to acknowledge that. And then service access for internal migrants is also very important. So delinking essential services from local registration where feasible is one of our recommendations, and these I mean people from one province to another, from one city to another, from within the same border, within the same national country. So if you are from Florida and you happen to find yourself in Boston, you should be able to access internal services, because if you went there because of a giant fire, you don't need to change the registration in your own country. So this is for federations, but it also applies for countries that have provincial services in their different provinces. And then we must ensure that the host community is not being depleted. Host communities are already depleted. So the beginning and perhaps the first step is to empower our local communities to be able to make them into good hosts. And that is to make sure that we fund the arrival municipalities and ports so that they can absorb the people and the people don't become a burden. People is by nature productive. So when we are seeing all those misinformations or information saying these people are leaching into the system, they are burdening our system, it means we are also not allowing them to, and not empowering our host community to say, okay, wake up, fly, and make money so you pay into our tax so we can make more streets, more hospitals, more schools, better services for all of us. So those are our 3 recommendations for this historic opportunity for just mobility and eliminating prejudice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Luz Helena. I got it right. I got it right. They had to do the heavy lifting. That was the last working group that we put together, because those who had been identified when we kickstarted the process, they ran away. And through the partnership with Al Kebulan Impact Awards, they mobilize others in civil society to come to the fore and bring the issues of humanizing what this working group was talking about, which is people-to-people interaction and solidarity, but it is about migration. Not only what did they do that, which is to deliver for us this policy brief. Last week, there was a immigration summit, Immigrations 20 Summit under C20. And we were able to connect with many other voices in terms of that process. So thank you for stepping in and running at the same pace as others. So colleagues, I'm going again to do what I did, which is to call for the a mover for the adoption of this working group, and then a seconder. I think the people that are online are disempowered somehow. But yeah, can we do it very fast here? There is a call there.
So just a quick addition to what you were saying. I always say when we have a conversation about migration, go back and study your family tree or your lineage, and you'll find somewhere that there's an immigrant in your family, which allows you to be where you are and which allow you the opportunities that you have at the moment. So I'm glad that you have this working group, and I support the adoption of the policy document. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder?
Hi everyone, my name is Asanda. I second the adoption.
Can we, a round of applause, colleagues? That's, and we have a young man online here before we get to the next one. So we're going to go to the last one, and then after the last one is done, we'll then go for lunch and go home. But there's a young man here who I've been calling his name, Jacob. And I want him, just Jacob, in 2 minutes to share with colleagues, because it might be on paper, this is theory, but there are people that are living this reality. Your story about how your family, through this technocratic process, has been affected, and you personally have been affected in terms of, are you talking to him? Okay, Antonio got off. Why is he getting off now? Okay, but he can just join in. Jacob, you will see Antonio. Can you please share with colleagues what this process that Dr. Luz Helena has been talking about, it actually means for a person like you in a situation that you are in? Jacob? Hi, Jacob. Jacob?
Yes.
Can you tell them about how Home Affairs has made your life very difficult so that people can locate that within what we are dealing with this? I know I'm calling on you, but it is very important for us to understand why we're making these calls and how they are. Jacob is servicing us in terms of the technology that is there. He's part of people that are in South Africa and whose presence has been mismanaged through this process that is dealing with human issues. Jacob, over to you.
Okay, good afternoon, I guess. Yeah, good afternoon. So I'm just going to be a bit quick. So I got here in SA in 2006, and all was well because we had our status, right? So, you know, when you come in every other countries, you first start with an asylum, and once you're accepted in the country, then you get a status, right? So upon receiving a status, then you are now qualified to apply for citizenship.
Right here.
Is it Julian? Can you mute those people?
Hello, Alan. I'm good. How are you?
What is going on? Jacob, please continue.
Oh, okay.
No, it's only November.
Someone is talking.
It is Roche. She is unmuted. Can you mute her? I can hear her voice.
Oh, okay.
Talk then, continue.
Oh, sorry, I was muted again. Oh, I think I know why. Okay. So once you get a status, then you are now qualified to apply for a permanent resident, right? So 2018, when we went to renew our status again, they separated the entire family because my father is the owner of the farm. Then they say, because you are older, above 18, you are a minor, you will now have to own your own document. So upon removing us, when they did, then they interviewed us again as if you were a newcomer again, right? Now they ask you, why are you here? Why did you come and what happened? And mind you, I was 10 years when I came and I didn't obviously know much reason. And then the officer, how do I put this? Rejected it because he says it was not a valid reason to say why and this. So since 2019, we've been going to Home Affairs and COVID hit. After COVID, I think 2020 and 2021, there were no issues because since Home Affairs was not operating in person and there were no online services, they were not really giving issues. But then afterwards, 2022, when they resumed their work, 23 and 24, constantly you go and you they keep postponing it and say, no, either service is offline, they make you sit for the whole day and then you have to come back the next day, you know, until last year when Home Affairs had some couple of issues where they were investigating a case of corruption. So most of the computers that were there were confiscated. I mean, let me not say confiscated, but they went for investigation. So it was around July or August last year when I was there. But November last year, again, when I came, the new officer was like, we don't have you on the system, your stuffs are deleted. And I was like, but I wasn't deleted because I've been coming, here is what they've been giving me and the stories and so forth. So he was like, okay, what your previous officer should have done, the reason they removed you on the file was to say, if your father dies, because right now, when you are still a child, for instance, to renew your status, you need your parent with you. But the reason we separated it was because should he die, you have to be independent. So what he should have done was to copy your father's files and place it on your side and with an affidavit stating that you are his child. So the whole 5 years was wasted because someone was not doing the right thing, I guess I can say. But the document was deleted. I had to give him the relevant documents that was received. Now he loaded back the files into But the issue now I have is overstay. So overstay is when your document is expired. Now, your profile gets locked. For it to be unlocked, you have to pay a certain amount, but you have to receive a ticket from Home Affairs to say, here is the case, take this to the police station, pay this a specific amount for your then we will unlock your profile. But since last year again up to now, before the system went offline again, I've been still going and going and going and still no assistant. I hope I explained it much the way you wanted. Thanks.
No, thank you. And thanks for allowing us to pry into your private life. But that which Dr. Luz Helena was talking about, because nobody wants to be seen as, you know, illegal. And then there's a person who came into the country, was given the legal process, and then things just go wrong when the other processes have to. You can imagine if it's happening to someone who's in country, came legally, and then a person who's outside of the country wants to be regularized, and then when this happens, what's going to happen? They are going to bring themselves here by fire, by force, and then others are calling them illegal, you know. So from what Dr. Nzo was saying, the policies are there, the wheelchair is there, but there is a human being behind that wheelchair, and now from policy to practice is another story. And these things affect us, and they affect us in ways that sometimes you can't imagine. So his father is here, his papers are in order, but Jacob and his brother, it's a different story, and then the sister is another story, which, so a family that is together is being broken by this system. But that's why we're making these policy proposals. That last week, the Minister of Home Affairs was there. So Dr. Luz Helena, we need to also ensure that we take that, not only do we say we are done with the assignment, but we actually become advocates of things that can and should be done that are in your proposal. Because at the end of the day, it's also about digital inclusivity that can be tapped into to ensure that electronic records cannot be just wiped away. Somebody deleted this thing. But if you go back to the system, you actually are going to be able to trace it. So if Jacob had money, he'll call lawyers and his problem will be resolved. He doesn't have the money, so he goes through the system as the system. Come next week, he goes. Then the system says, no, the system is offline. Come back again and again. So since 2019, this is just one individual, but you can now imagine how this impacts on the millions that are there. So without much ado, are we ready? Jacob, I call you again as tech now. What is going on with Antonio? We saw him, he was there for the next working group, which is standing between us and lunch. Can you just update us with Antonio? We saw him on the dashboard, now he's gone. Jagoba? Jacob?
Sure, Maps.
Is it the next person that is speaking there?
Good day.
This is the next person.
Shepa.
Okay. Before you start, let me give over to Nicole to do the introduction. Thank you very kindly.
Thank you so much, everyone, and thank you, Sherpa. So now we're going to have working group 3, which is democratic governance, civil space, anti-corruption, and access to justice. I will ask our colleague, lead facilitator, Ms. Colette, to start the proceedings as we're having issues with getting Antonio onto the line. And then after this, we'll be having our lunch, and then everything will be adjourned after that. Thank you so much.
Good day. Thank you very much, Nicole. It's an honor and privilege to be presenting our colleagues. I hope they will be able to join on this brief policy. And we have Antonio Roque from World Peace International, based in the UK. We have Pastor Lebu Nkadima. She is a founder of a Omang youth organization based in the Northwest Province of South Africa. Myself, Colette Lekrujani, the Executive Director of the Human Rights Institute of South Africa, based in Johannesburg. And we also have Fodea Bangora, our colleague who is based in Guinea. He is also an advisor to a youth organization in his country. We are pleased to have this opportunity, and I hope I'll be guided because we have divided our presentation by 4 segments because the issue that you are covering has got those 4 segments: democratic governance, civic space, anti-corruption, and access to justice. So I'm going to do the introduction and the executive summary. And then from there on, there will be recommendations, which our colleague Fodea Bangwara was going to tackle. We'll see if it's possible. And due to connection technicalities, we'll make a plan. Should it be difficult for him to join and speak. And then we have anti-corruption, which he'll also be tackling, and access to justice, that will be a pastor level. I thank you very much. Let me start the presentation. Our introduction. Currently, many countries in the G20 are facing democratic crisis. Despite universal ratification of the African Union, the United Nations frameworks to benefit citizens and foster global stability and human rights, the AU Agenda 2063, the Prevention and Combating Corruption, the United Nations Against Corruption, the UN SDG 16 are important tools that continue guiding us to overcome our challenges. Regrettably, we have observed over time states' inability to govern effectively and uphold democratic values. This leads to citizens losing faith in democracy, resulting in social unrest and inequality. Noting this effect, the growing gap between the developing and developed countries. Neglect of the marginalized is marked by social fragmentation, economic uncertainty, and exacerbation of geopolitical conflicts. Although representing 85% of global GDP and 2/3 of the world's population, the persisting governance gaps in the G20 regress gains towards meaningful attainment of social economic cohesion, safe communities, and effectively running institutions. The working group is advancing this policy brief to highlight the shortcomings in the G20 governance systems, affecting its progressive policy regime to champion global economic development. This policy brief responds to these challenges by advancing 4 interlinked pillars: democratic governance, civic space, anti-corruption, and access to justice. Together, they provide roadmaps for reinforcing the G20 vision of stability, inclusivity, and sustainable development. Notable progress has been made through past declarations, such as the high-level principles on beneficial ownership transparency, 2014, and commitments emerging from the Anti-Corruption Working Group dated 2021 to 2024, but implementation consistently lags behind ambition. Key gaps persist. Democratic backsliding is evident even in long-standing democracies where electoral integrity and institutional independence face renewed pressures. Civic space continues to shrink across G20 countries, with civil society organizations, human rights defenders, whistleblowers, journalists, and vulnerable groups encountering greater barriers to participate and get protection. Anti-corruption efforts, despite universal ratification of the UNCAC, AUCC, remain fragmented, with weak cooperation on illicit financial flows and money laundering. Access to justice is uneven as courts in some G20 states face political interference, while systematic barriers limit legal empowerment for marginalized communities, and especially the LGBTQI+. Physical, communicative, and procedural barriers within justice system disproportionately exclude persons with disability, denying them redress. The G23 stresses stronger, actually the Working Group 3 stresses stronger collaboration among the G20, leading to effective implementation of treaties and policies. By sharing best practices and resources, countries can overcome challenges and work towards collective goals more efficiently. Executive summary. In today's rapidly changing world, the health of our democracy and trust is more critical than ever. If we fail to seize the opportunity to address the threats facing it, we risk being overwhelmed by the modern challenges, including corruption, misinformation, and erosion of civil liberties. This discussion explores how existing global and regional instruments can be leveraged to ensure coherence and accountability in this ongoing fight.
Jacob, you cut out Colette as you try and cue Antonio. Can you bring Colette back whilst you get ready with Antonio? Jacob?
I'm looking into it.
Okay, colleagues, there was a poet called Mzwakhe Mbuli. In one of his poems, he said that whenever Jacob, or he said, whenever I protest about hunger, anger is the reaction. So, Jacob, you don't want my anger because the food is smelling and the session was moving very nicely. And now you intervened. Undo your intervention, bring Colette back, and put on Antonio so that we finish. Batando, you have your sessions tomorrow. You must tell your presenters if they are joining online. They must join. They must join on the link so that this technical thing can be dealt with the day before. Otherwise, that's why we have the glitches that we are having now, because they didn't join to be upgraded to be people with authority to speak. Yeah.
One minute.
Colleagues, whilst we are there, we have shared with you. I was in a meeting in 8 o'clock this morning, and then earlier again for the G20 social planning. There is a link that the colleagues have shared, which all of us must complete by this Friday. It is for you to provide your details as an attendee for the C20. So for the C20 Summit, the group 1, 2, and 3, through your facilitators, there should be list of people who must attend that you would have given to Nicole, so that those people can put their details on that link. That's accreditation for our purpose, but also for logistics. There's also a secondary link for the G20 Social Summit, 18 to 20. It must also be completed as well. We have been given 600 spots for the 4,000 participants of the G20 Social Summit as C20. 100 of those seats we will be allocating them to the disability sector, which is the delegates, and some of them need their aids. The other 100 will be providing it to the LGBTQI. And then we have 400 spots that must be between leaders of the various platforms, the working group facilitators, as well as the participants. So those need to be completed by this Friday. That link does not take more than 2 minutes for you to complete. It does not need you to be attaching anything. It's just your information, personal information. So the people that will be managing the accreditation is the State Security Agency, because it's a government event. International guests are arriving. There is a spreadsheet that they've given to us that requires particular information from you, so that you, when you arrive on accreditation, you're not, if you have not registered there, you won't have accreditation. You can't call me. I'm going to ignore your call, because I told you a month before. And there's nothing I can do, because once it gets into state security, people there, they act very, they don't act nicely. They just say, if you are not on the list, there's nothing I can talk to you about. So I don't want anybody who wants to come not expressing their interest by the deadline. Because if it is not done, we are going to submit for C20 what we have. And then the other processes are outside of our control. But Antonio is back now. Antonio, we are ready for you to take over from where Colette was unceremoniously taken
Yes.
out. Over to you.
All right, thank you very much. Apologize for all of these technical challenges that we've been having, and I'm going to start where Colette has actually left, and I'm going to start with the recommendations. I'm going to switch off the camera here so that it's more easy, at least for my side. So I'm going to start with number one, which is democratic governance, the recommendations. So number one, to cultivate political pluralism and cultural tolerance, promoting regional and international cooperation, mandate the inclusion and representation of persons with disabilities and all marginalized gender identities in all co-created governance models and leadership programming, institutionalize civic data monitoring mechanisms using citizen-generated information to inform real-time feedback reflections on service delivery and corruption trends. Support co-created governance models by funding civil society-led social accountability initiatives, particularly in conflict-affected contexts. Embed youth feminists and grassroots leadership within the democratic governance programming, especially in countries where representative inclusion is undermined by contexts where representative inclusion is constrained by structural barriers. Prioritize institutional resilience against democratic backsliding, particularly through adequately funding democratic institutions, protecting electoral integrity, independent oversight bodies and media freedom, promote adherence to the UN's Sustainable Development Goal 16 and African Union governance mechanism, especially African Union Charter on election, democracy, and governance. Institutionalize participatory forums, award to national, with published minutes, timelines, and feedback loops. Adopt open contracting and open budgets so citizens can trace decisions to spending, and public service delivery dashboards, DPI open data to track commitments versus outcomes. On the civic space, help to halt the erosion of civic space, including access digital surveillance, arbitrary detention, and overregulation of civil society actors, human rights defenders under the guise of national security. Establish permanent G20, C20 UN civil society dialogue mechanisms, not limited to annual cycles, to ensure year-round access to decision-making. Prioritize also the legal empowerment and legal literacy programming, especially in underserved rural and informal urban communities, to build durable civic engagement. Support civil society, human rights defenders, and multi-stakeholder interventions aimed at safeguarding civil space domestically and regionally. Integrating ACP-HPR guidelines on freedom of association and human assembly in Africa and UN Declaration on Human Rights Defenders, promoting model law enactment. Strengthen the cooperation and shared knowledge, advancing harmony, fundamental freedoms, justice, dignity for all, leaving no one behind. Implementing HRD protection measures, rapid legal aid, incident hotlines, and non-retaliation. Fund community media and rural voice hubs to counter stigmatization of activists. Provide low-cost digital security kits and training CBOs, threat modeling, secure communications, data hygiene, and dignity products. And going now on the point number 3, anti-corruption. So to reinforce transnational anti-corruption enforcement and collaboration, this is a very important point, including commitments to beneficial ownership transparency, automatic exchange of information, and corporate accountability. Protect anti-corruption activists, human rights defenders, whistleblowers, and investigative journalists through model laws and safe haven mechanisms, cross-border support, and enforceable protocols. promote community-driven anti-corruption innovations such as dialogues, participatory budgeting, social audits, and digital whistleblowing platforms. Leverage multilateral platforms, regional and international, such as open government partnerships, SADC, high-level panel, illicit financial flow from Africa, Pan-African Parliament, African Review Mechanism, SADC Parliament Forum, and others all over the world, by leveraging international and regional instruments such as African Union and United Nations anti-corruption instruments, and SADC Model Law on Public Finance Management, PFM, OGP commitments, and FATF recommendations to inform national policy reforms. Our efforts can actually strengthen the vertical coherence between national initiatives and regional strategies for accountability. Implement also central public beneficial ownership registers with sanctions for non-compliance. Mandate open contracting data standard in all major procurements. Publish bidders, price variations, etc. Create civic monitors, citizen audits, and social accountability. And coming to point number 4, access to justice, just criminalize poverty-related offenses, example of informal vending, minor drug use, petty theft, or sex work that entrench inequality in overburdened judicial systems. Implement data-driven judicial reform with transparent dashboards, tracking case backlogs, pre-trial detention rates, and human rights violations. Mandate universal accessibility and reasonable accommodation in all courts, police stations, and legal aid services. Champion intersectional justice by funding tailored support for families, very important, women in rural areas, youth, migrants, LGBTQI+ persons with disabilities, as well as albinisms and other structurally excluded groups, ensuring equitable access beyond formal courts. Align national new laws with international and regional frameworks, including the UN Justice for All Agenda, AU International Justice Policy, SDG 16, and AU Agenda 2063, Article 3. Modernize the ICC, International Criminal Court, and International Court of Justice, and have them recognized as complementary grantors, mediators of peace, mercy, and understanding partners in ensuring that stability, coherence, impartiality, and the strengthening of the G20 justice institutions across all levels for better balance and peace mediation. Scale legal aid and paralegal networks in rural communities, waive limit fees for indigent users, deploy e-justice tools, SMS, USSD case studies, online small claims, remote fillings with offline options, and translate laws, procedures, mobile clinics, schools, community paralegals, and omnibus points. Finally, setting several service standards, case timelines, access targets, publish performance, and provide remedies for delays. Establish GBV, one-stop justice pathways, and evidence handling and survivor support with fast-track courts. There's some resume that I'm going to go to highlight as well of all of this that was, so our key points are, I'm going to go through the resume of the issue, not going through the evidence. There's quite a lot actually to go, and I'm going to go through the suggested recommendation. So summary of the issue 1, exclusion from democratic processes. So our call is to mandate inclusion of marginalized groups, persons with disabilities, gender diverse persons, strengthen institution against democratic backsliding, promote pluralism, and ensure open contracting and service delivery. Dashboards. Target persecutions of LGBTQA persons, explicitly condemn criminalization, strengthen protection mechanisms, and promote asylum cooperation, and encourage G20 discriminalizing policies. Inaccessible justice systems, mandate universal accessibility in justice systems, scale up legal aid with community paralegal networks, introduce e-justice tools with offline options and set service delivery standards with remedies for delays. Corruption and weak enforcement, enforce beneficial ownership registers, mandate open contracting data standards, strengthen whistleblower protection, and foster community monitoring through social audits and citizen reporting. Shrinking civic space, establish a permanent G20, C20 UN civil society dialogue, fund human rights defenders protection, legal aid hotline safe havens, and support rural media hubs and digital security for CSOs. Overregulation, digital surveillance, halt excessive digital surveillance and arbitrary regulation, promote international model laws to safeguard freedoms of association, expression, and assembly. Youth and grassroots leadership excluded, embedded youth, feminist, and grassroots leadership in governance programming, especially in fragile contexts. Poverty-linked criminalization, discriminalize poverty-related offenses, expand restorative justice, and invest in community alternatives to incarceration. Gender-based violence and justice gaps, establish gender-based violence one-stop justice pathway with fast-track court, survivor support, and proper evidence handling. Political interference in judiciary, so promote transparent judicial reforms, strengthening oversight bodies, and align with international justice frameworks, International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice, UN Justice for All, African Union transnational justice policy. Illicit financial flows from Africa and everywhere, really. So leverage regional platforms, AU, SADC, Pan-African Parliament, UN, to strengthen asset recovery, financial transparency, and cross-border enforcement. Weak accountability in public procurement, mandate open contracting data standards for major procurement, publish all bidders, contract terms, and variations. Marginalization of rural women and youth, prioritize target funding for rural women and youth empowerment, legal literacy in entrepreneurship support through inclusive governance programs, threaten to media freedom, guarantee media freedom by funding community media hubs, protecting journalists and embedded press independence in democratic institutions. Underutilization of international frameworks, strengthen compliance monitoring, reporting mechanisms, and peer reviewing across G20 to bridge commitment implementation gaps. Climate and justice linkage, integrate climate justice to access to justice frameworks, ensuring displaced and climate affected populations are protected under law. Digital divide and exclusion, expand ICT infrastructure, invest in low-cost digital access, and develop hybrid online and offline justice and civic participation systems. Whistleblower retaliation, adopt strong G20-wide whistleblower protection frameworks, safe haven mechanisms, and non-retaliation guarantees. Fragment regional cooperation, foster cross-regional cooperation, share databases, and harmonize enforcement mechanisms to ensure coherence. Impunity for human rights violations, establish rapid accountability mechanisms, independent inquiries, and sanctions for rights violations within the G20 frameworks. Weak international justice mechanisms, modernize and strengthen the ICC and ICJ to recognize them as complementary grantors of global justice and ensure the G20 states' commitment to respect their rulings, promote their role in peace mediation, stability, and coherence of the international legal order. And I have done it so far, and that's my conclusions. I don't know if anyone has any questions, but yeah.
You will be happy to know that we don't have questions.
Okay.
Because we don't allow questions.
Okay. Okay. I was trying to be very quick. I know there was some technical problems, and I was trying to accelerate so that we can all be on time.
Okay.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Let's give him a round of applause. Thank you, Colette, Pastor Lebu, Antonio, and Fodea. for the great work you have done, and you have given to us the product. I'm going to call on colleagues to move for adoption of the report, and then we will just make some announcement as we get to the end. I don't have my specs, so I can't see, so you can. There is a hand at the back.
Okay, thank you all very much.
Hi everyone, my name is Nolo Masila. So I was part of the working group 3, Democratic Governance, and I support the adoption of the policy.
Mover, can I have a seconder? In the room, we want to go eat. Don't make it very long.
Hello everyone, my name is Nozi Kombozo Mudise, and I'm also part of the working group, and I support the motion and the policy. Thank you.
Let's give them a round of applause. We have now deposited the 5th document and the 3rd policy brief that we have. Ayanda is not in the room, but that's what we're going to do. We have asked the colleagues to give us the final version they have. We have adopted them. They are going to be distributed in our public space now, which is our website and other media platforms that we have. It is what it is. If there is any criticism, we are ready for it. And we will do the same tomorrow when we have adopted the 5 policies that come. We will now have 10 documents that we have. They are all being part of one document, but we're dealing with them one by one. By Thursday, we will have 16 components that we will have. And then the last day is going to be the declaration or our communique, which encapsulates the various resolutions that have been made. Colleagues, you have been a wonderful audience. We now are at the end of today. We could have finished earlier, but we started late and then there were technical glitches. It was also something that we will deal with as we move into tomorrow so that the lessons we have learned here, they don't repeat themselves. But thank you very much, Jacob, for assisting our technical team here, because we want to connect all of us. We're also streaming live. So as these glitches were happening, part of what is happening there, it's okay. We can't be perfect all the time. We would have wanted perfection. But you have been a good audience. So we have a banner there. We want to take the picture of all of us. It's also part of reporting as well, that we are doing the work. And those who will come tomorrow, we will ask the same of them tomorrow, and then Thursday, and then on Friday. So with that being said and done, I would want to invite Nicole. Nicole is part of the administrative support team. She has spoken with many of you as the facilitators more than all of us. Online, I'm sure we have Greer, who has also interacted with the various colleagues. I think Dr. Luz Helena was also making reference to some of the guidance that they have been receiving in terms of what it is that they need to do. So there is a big machinery behind this. As you have seen, I mean, Fodea is in Guinea, could not participate as was planned. Antonio is in the UK. We had Dimitri in Russia. So it's not just, it's happening in South Africa, in Africa, but it is much bigger and broader than us. So we are very grateful. It's our product. Working group number 6 facilitator, Princess Bam, is here. So she knows what it is that needs to happen tomorrow, because she's part of 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 that's happening tomorrow. So we are ready. Thank you very kindly, colleagues. Let me call on Nicole to close us and tell us also where lunch will be served. But once we have taken the picture and have had our lunch, we are done with the sessions of today. Over to you, Nicole.
we've come to the end of today, and I would like to thank everyone for participating physically and virtually. I want to take the time to thank my facilitators we've had sleepless nights, endless texts, just to get this done, and thank you so much for everyone who participated and added their input to something so important that's taking place. So thank you so much for everything. So now we will go to our lunch, which will be served out here, and before we eat, let's grab a picture of today, and then we can go. Thank you so much, everyone.
you.